Welcome in. What's Right with Nick Wright, episode 396. This episode, as always, is presented to you by our friends at Boost Mobile on this holiday week. So a little bit of a different schedule this week. Today's show, obviously, as normally planned. However, this will be a 2-show week, not a 3-show week. Because of Thanksgiving, we will have our pick show that will come out Wednesday. So Wednesday, we will drop our week 13 picks after a very successful week 12 pick show that got us above 500 on the year. DeMonze back to 500 with the teasers. We were this close to, were we this close to a 3-0 weekend? I think we were. I'm going to double check. Yeah, this close to a 3-0 weekend, or a 5-0 weekend, pardon me. We ended 3-1-1. We'll discuss that on the pick show. DeMonze's teaser covered easily. So all that coming to you Wednesday, and I will be flying out on Wednesday to Los Angeles and to see DeMonze, to see baby Mila, and maybe as early as next week, DeMonze could be back to the pod, certainly before the stretch run of the NFL season. But a ton to do today, and unlike last week, the Chiefs are not coming off a devastating, heart-wrenching, keep-me-up-at-night loss, so we will start with the Chiefs instead of with the NBA. I know that annoyed some of you last week. I want to make this clear. It's totally legitimate that it annoyed some of you last week. It would have annoyed me too, but you know what? It's my damn show. Straight to voicemail brought to you by Boost Mobile. Luka nutmegging old man Kevin Love. Can somebody get Kevin Love out of Utah and get him on a team that has a pulse, please? Actually, Utah, to be fair, has a bit of a pulse, but on a team that could maybe, at least he could have a little more fun on. Jameis has the play of the year catching a touchdown pass. And the Pistons, shout out Greg Jennings. He needed a win this week. The Pistons match their franchise record win streak at 13. A reminder to all of you in this holiday season, the single best gift you can give us is subscribing to the show, whether that be on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. Honestly, best case scenario for us, subscribe on YouTube, and then also whatever your favorite audio platform is. We do greatly appreciate that. It's just an added bonus if you like or rate the show, but really the subscriptions do help us out. So, we start with the Chiefs saving their season. Because while they would not have been mathematically eliminated, and I probably would have even convinced myself, well, if they just go 6-0 down the stretch, they'll make the playoffs, which is true, by the way. 11 wins almost assuredly will get them in, and 5-6, they would have still been alive for 11 wins. That would have been a season-ending loss. Dominating the time of possession, dominating the yardage battle, and just not making championship plays would have signaled that this Chiefs team simply doesn't have the juice of Chiefs teams in years past. Thankfully, however, they are the Chiefs. They do still have Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones and Andy Reid. And despite fumbling inside the 5-yard line while trailing by 11 in the fourth quarter, they then played perfect defensive football, good but not great offensive football, and it was enough to potentially derail is probably too strong, but really throw a wrench in this magical Indy season and give Kansas City a chance to, in 48 hours, be for the first time, or just the second time all year, 2 games above 500, really have their head above water and be able to have the mini bye, take a deep breath before a very difficult stretch run of final 5 games, 2 of which are cupcakes, the Titans and the Raiders, and 3 of which are teams fighting for exactly what the Chiefs are fighting for: AFC playoff spots and AFC playoff seeding, with games against the Texans, Chargers, and Broncos. So how did they do it? Because right now they are still the 10 seed. They went into the week the 9 seed, but they come out of the week despite the win the 10 seed because the Texans won, the Chargers were off, the Jags won. We'll get to those games later. So how did they do it? They did it because the defense absolutely shut down, start to finish, Jonathan Taylor in one of the most impressive defensive performances any team has had all year. They allowed 20, but 7 of them were on a drive that started at the 3 thanks to Patrick's interception. And so to essentially hold the highest scoring, highest yardage, most efficient offense in the NFL to 13 points without forcing a turnover is just a remarkable job by that Chiefs defense. And for the Colts to have the ball up 11 and go run, pass, and then have the ball up 3 and go pass, and then have the ball up 3 again and go pass before you go to overtime and you go pass, run. It is a testament to the fact that the Chiefs defense was able to convince the Colts by the 4th quarter of this game, you're simply not going to get Jonathan Taylor going. But it also was a testament to the fact that the Chiefs defense, right or wrong, simply said, Daniel Jones, go ahead and beat us. We don't think you can. And he couldn't. And that gave the Chiefs offense and Patrick just enough bites at the apple that they were able to overcome a really sloppy game. Not just the turnovers, but the red zone inefficiency, the missed open guys, and the herky-jerky nature of the offense. And Rashee Rice, in the second half of that game, really for the first time, maybe since his suspension, certainly since his first game back from the suspension, looked like the player that we saw at the end of his rookie year and the beginning of last season before he got injured, which is just a dynamic, elite yard after catch player. Xavier Worthy made a huge play. Noah freaking Gray made a catch while unconscious, which is still one of the more remarkable feats of this NFL season. And the Chiefs offense did just enough against the Lou Anarumo Colts defense to where they're now stabilized. By the way, that is now 4 consecutive wins by Patrick against Lou Anarumo, his alleged kryptonite. 4 wins in a row. After losing the first 3 games he faced against him, he's now won 4 straight. But the story of the game is the defense. The fact that the Colts had 13 3-and-outs all year going into that game, which is remarkable. And I don't know how many they had total in the game, but I do know they had 4 straight to end the game. And Chris Jones, who has been, I think it's fair to say, underwhelming this year, picked a hell of a time to make his biggest impact. And listen, I know I was watching the game with Danny, and Danny was, we were talking about the Chiefs and whether or not, I think they have another gear and just why I think the offense hasn't looked quite as good. And I made the point, and maybe this is an excuse, maybe it's a justification, but there's just not a lot of comparisons for it. I made the point of, I do think the Chiefs, and this can apply to the coaches and the players, have to play a different style and a different brand of football than every other team in the league, because they are going on what they hope is their 8th consecutive 20-game season. And the ability to peak at the end of the year, to have your key guys healthy at the end of the year, to have enough juice left in the tank. And I bring that up with Chris because it is totally fair to say Chris Jones has not lived up this season to his reputation, to his contract, to, all of those things. But also, and I know this is not apples to oranges, but when you see the impact one 20-game super high usage season has on a guy like Saquon Barkley, and more on him in a bit, and you see the Lions, it's like, man, couple really good years, and now they seem to be scuttling a bit. The Rams, who have been unbelievable, had in the midst of, from when they won the Super Bowl to right now, where they are the Super Bowl favorites, they had a year where they won, 6 games? Where it all came apart for a season. And so, listen, maybe Chris was just not playing well. Or maybe there is a level of, man, I'm a 30-something-year-old D tackle that's played the equivalent of 8 seasons in the last 7. And I need to make sure I have a gear that I can get to come Thanksgiving time. I don't know. I just do know that by year 8 of the Patriots run, so the Patriots' initial run, 01 through 08, they had a year in there where they missed the playoffs. They had another year in there where they lost in their first playoff game. They had another year in there where they lost in round 2. And then 08, they missed the playoffs entirely when Tom gets hurt. 09 and 10 are disappointing short playoff runs. Don't make a conference championship game. And then from 11 to 18, they go on their 8 straight conference championship appearances, 5 Super Bowls, 3 victories, which is, the Chiefs have done the 5 Super Bowls, 3 victories in 7 years. And by 2018, that team was leaking some oil. And by 2019, they were done. Just done. Losing to Ryan Tannehill at home in the playoffs type of done. And so, I think it's very, very difficult to watch the Chiefs and determine, are they just not as good? Or, have the games caught up to them? Or are they likely, as they have, to be fair, every other year of, as this dynasty has gotten to year 5, 6, 7, simply have an extra gear for the playoffs and for the late in the season. Now, for Kansas City, the playoffs really have started. It's not single elimination, but it's damn close to double elimination. And the Cowboys game is going to be really hard. I don't think the Cowboys defense is quite as good as it has looked the last 2 weeks, but it's obviously improved, and that Cowboys offense is exceptional. And really good pocket passing quarterbacks have given Kansas City some trouble as far as the inability to get off the field, the inability to generate a pass rush. So I don't think that Cowboys game is anything close to a cinch. However, I do think that if both the Cowboys and the Chiefs are coming off season-saving for the time being, stirring home comebacks, and then a very short turnaround to what will be the most watched regular season game in the history of professional football. Cowboys-Chiefs on Thanksgiving. I do think the Chiefs are more likely to handle the jubilation of the win and the short week and the stage. They're more likely to handle that game with professionalism and attention that it deserves than Dallas is. And I also think that while the Chiefs' offense has been uneasy, or uneven, I should say, when they have played bad defenses, they've looked exceptional. 37 on the Ravens, 28 and should have been 38 on the Jags, 30 on the Lions, 31 on the Raiders, 28 on the Commanders. Now you can say the Bills have a bad defense, but the Bills' bad defense is its run defense. And the Chiefs aren't really built to take advantage of that. So, should be a great game. Cowboys barely holding on to any playoff hope. The Chiefs have real reason for optimism, but they got to win Thursday. But it all would have been moot had they lost to the Colts. And the Colts, on the other hand, I called them the 2024 Vikings early in the year, and I'll go ahead and stand by that. And I think the Colts, I think they'll be fine. But what I do know is their final six, and they have, my opinion, the Colts started looking shaky 3 weeks ago. They lost to the Steelers. They got very fortunate to win against the Falcons in Berlin in overtime. They lost to the Chiefs, and now they go Texans, Jags, Seahawks, Niners, Jags, Texans. 6 straight games against teams playing for something. 4 divisional games. 3 total road games. Colts need a win on Sunday against a Texans defense that's going to be extra rested and feeling the best it's felt all year, and they should have C.J. Stroud back. Today's show is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. There are 3 things to be thankful for this week. Family, food, football. Thanks to Hard Rock Bet, you can easily sneak in bets while your crazy uncle goes on his annual rant about the good old days. Sign up today, and you could feast with $150 in bonus bets. Just place a $5 bet. If it hits, you get not only your winnings, but also $150 in extra bonus bets. That's an offer you cannot pass up, even on a full stomach. Not sure what to place your first bet? Head over the Hard Rock Bet Stats Hub, and it'll help you out. It's loaded with trends, streaks, and stats to help guide your picks. Numbers rarely lie, and the data in there never does. Plus, this week on Hard Rock Bet, you get 3 50% profit boots, 1 for each Thanksgiving Day game. You know I'll be locked in on the Kansas City game, well, really all the games. Boost your same game parlay or SGP max so your bets pay extra winnings. New promos every day, so if you're listening to this later, just open the app, check out what you've got any day of the week. Download the Hard Rock Bet app and make your first deposit. All right. The Eagles blew it against Dallas. There's no other way to put it. And the Eagles, here is my takeaway, honestly, from that Eagles game. A.J. Brown is not wrong. There is something wrong with Philly's offense. Philly's offense this year has 8 halves. They've played 24, obviously. No, actually, that's not obvious, and I think it's wrong because they've already had a bye. So they've played 22. In 8 of their 22 halves, so more than a third, they have scored 7 or fewer points. They have 3 scoreless halves of football. Only the Titans are worse. And they do not have Saquon to save them this year. I know he's on the team. He ain't saving them. And this was the most predictable year-over-year decline imaginable. Literally every running back, save one in NFL history that has had Saquon's type of workload last year, saw a significant drop the following year. A lot of guys, their production dropped by half. That's what we're staring at with Saquon. And while the passing game at times looks dynamic, they just can't string together a whole game. And right or wrong, Sirianni consistently shows us with his decision-making that for some reason or another, he does not fully trust Jalen. And the end of the half was bizarre. You have 18 seconds, you have the ball in the 30. And in today's NFL, you're 25 yards away from field goal range. We know you think Jake Elliott's got a big leg because later in the game, you eschewed a 4th and 5 attempt to kick a field goal. And Sirianni's explanation after the game was, well, the Cowboys kicker has such a big leg, we don't want to leave them time. There was 18 seconds. There was no scenario at all, except for a turnover, where the Cowboys were going to touch the ball, much less kick a field goal. Even if you just threw 4 consecutive incomplete passes, that takes 18 seconds. So that didn't make sense. And Philly is obviously in good shape because of the division they're in. So they're going to be a good seed. They're going to be a division champion. They still have 3 games left against the Commanders and Raiders. They're going to finish with a gaudy record. I'm not worried, honestly, about any of those things. But the flashing siren that's been, what is up with this offense, continues to go off. And now getting Lane Johnson back, if you get him back in a month or so, that should help. But he's only been gone 1 game. And if I'm Philly, here's the other thing that I hate about this loss. My path to the 1 seed is now so much trickier. In fact, I'm going to look. The Wild just got me going to this as my go-to. But, and I've always kind of actually liked this, but I used to use Football Outsiders or Aaron Schatz's. But the New York Times playoff predictor, they have the Eagles at 26% for the 1 seed. The Rams up to 57%. That's a big deal. The extra playoff game plus not having the huge edge of potentially a warm weather contender having to come to your building. And right now, the, projected playoff field of the Eagles being the 2 seed and hosting either the Lions or the Niners, I wouldn't love either of those spots if I were Philly. And by the way, speaking of the Niners, just real quick, I have never been proven more right more times than every time the Niners trot out either Mac Jones or Brock Purdy or all of last season for what was once such a controversial hot button take that Brock Purdy is not a force multiplier and is a Kyle Shanahan Niners amazing skill position player creation. The last year seeing him without those great players, this year seeing Mac Jones outplay him, and then last night seeing him throw 3 picks, it's just every single time. And I know the arguments I've won because they start becoming less and less prominent on the TV show. I'm like, oh, okay. The cost of being the annoying guy is when you just smoke your 2 much more likable co-hosts in a multi-year argument. You just have to take the win, but take the win graciously, which I'm not always great at. So Philly, I don't know. And here's the other piece. It can't all be on the offensive coordinator in Philly. I'm not saying Patullo's doing a great job, but if he's doing that bad of a job, then Sirianni take over. But you have an offensive-minded head coach. You have a quarterback that carries himself like Michael Jordan. Figure it out. You have too much talent on that offense. That's an awful loss. And Dallas, on the other hand, right now, the Quinnen Williams trade is aging great. He's been excellent. I was not a fan of that trade. I still am not a fan of that trade. But right now, it is looking really good. But the story for Dallas is Dak's been the second best quarterback in the NFL this year. It's been Stafford 1, Dak 2. And it is as simple as that. He's been that good, and he has a legitimate second-team All-Pro case. And in that game Sunday, he became the Cowboys' all-time leading passer, which sounds about right. Hey guys, you ever notice how everything keeps going up? Rent's going up, streaming services are going up. Even your favorite burrito spot suddenly thinks they need to charge extra for salsa. But with Boost Mobile, you and your phone bill don't have to play the will this go up soon game. Why? Because Boost Mobile has unlimited talk, text, and data plan at a price that'll never go up. In fact, it's the same price you will pay for life. So switch now for unlimited wireless at a price that'll never go up, only at Boost Mobile. After 30 gigs, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 per month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan. All right, Shedeur Sanders got the win and was named, at least for the time being, the starter. I thought it was noteworthy that they said Gabriel has cleared concussion protocol, but Shedeur is still the starter. That is obviously the right call. And I find so much of the Shedeur commentary to be disingenuous and idiotic that I try not to swim in those waters, even though, man, oh man, if you are basing your Shedeur takes off what gets engagement, it's a very hard flame to avoid. So if you just, I mean, this is anecdotal, obviously, but yesterday's first things first clips on Twitter, if I'm just looking at it, by retweets or comments, see, and I'm not going to say what the topics were, but just see if you can guess which one was the Shedeur topic. Number of retweets and comments total on the first things first clips from yesterday's show. Clip 1, 199. Clip 2, 26. Clip 3, 44. Clip 4, 49. Clip 5, 36. Clip 7, 85. Clip 9, 33. Clip 12, or clip 10, sorry, 32. Clip 11, 1,158. Clip 12, 65. Clip 13, 37. Clip 14, 172. One of those stick out to you guys? Gets the people going. And so I also think part of that, the reason that commentary has gotten so snake eating its tailish, is there are a lot of folks who their only outlet is their social media feed. And so all they have to go on is reaction to things they put out on social media. And so because of that, they're like, well, this is what people want, and this is what people have strong opinions on. The Shedeur thing to me is very, very simple, and I will do it as efficiently as possible. Shedeur, the player compared to Gabriel, and why Shedeur should be the starter. There is absolutely no chance, none, that Dillon Gabriel is ever an above average NFL starter. It would be delightful if Dillon proves me wrong. If, Dillon Gabriel's friends or family see this clip, he uses it for motivation, grows a few inches, and gets a lot better. And then you can be like, Nick, you idiot. That's fine. I think it's 0% that he's ever an above average NFL starter. And I think it's close to 0% that he's ever even just a full-time starter. It doesn't mean that's a bad draft pick. If he can just be a competent backup stopgap quarterback, that's worth a third-round pick. So that's Gabriel. Shedeur has just enough traits and just enough collegiate pedigree and just enough, oh, wow, look at that play, that I give him a 5% chance, 5%, 1 in 20, of being a plus starter, and a 10 to 15% chance of being a full-time starter for somebody, the Browns or otherwise. That and that alone is enough to say, all right, let's use these last half dozen games to see what Shedeur has before we make massive decisions this offseason with our multiple first-round picks. So in that regard, I greatly prefer Shedeur to Gabriel for the Browns right now with what they're trying to do. That's take one. Take two. What did I think of Shedeur's game? I thought it was fine. He had one really nice chunk play over the middle, another potentially really nice chunk play to Jerry Jeudy that was a really nice chunk play until Jeudy started celebrating early and fumbled. He had one grisly interception, and then two swing passes, one of which went for a 60-yard touchdown, the other of which damn near got the Raiders back in the game. A bit of a mixed bag, and he was fine. But that being fine was the most important thing. What he couldn't be was awful or in way over his skis, and he wasn't. And so that's positive. And then there is the third point, which is Shedeur's disposition or personality or comments before and after the game. And I don't think that Shedeur means any harm. And I do think he is a very likable guy, and from all accounts, a really good guy. And I think he has handled growing up very rich and very famous better than most young people would. I believe that. I also think that while I always encourage confidence, particularly in athletes, particularly in guys that want to be starting quarterbacks, some of Shedeur's comments have butted up against what I believe to be, and maybe he'll prove me wrong, delusion. So, Shedeur really harping on, imagine what it'll look like when I have a full off season. Imagine what it'll look like when I have all the practice reps. Assumes, to get a little litigious for a moment, some facts not in evidence. Most notably, that at any point in the near or even distant future, but certainly near future, that you're going to be a team's unquestioned starter. Which the only way you're getting all the offseason reps, all the practice reps, is if you are the unequivocal QB1 for a team. And I do not think that Shedeur is on the doorstep of that. And I also think if I had to crystal ball it and say 10 years out, is it more likely than not that there will ever be a season where Shedeur is simply a team's incumbent, no competition involved, starting quarterback? I don't think that's going to happen. Shedeur clearly does. And good for him for believing it. I don't. It's not that I didn't like the comments he made before and after the game because I thought they were arrogant. I didn't like the comments he made because I thought it showed that he hasn't come to grips with where he is in the NFL quarterback hierarchy. So, unless he just absolutely balls out in a way that would be truly unprecedented for a fifth-round rookie and would be top 5 percentile for any rookie of any round at that position over the final 6 weeks, he is not going to enter next year as the clear-cut starter for any team. And it is going to take some really special performances over this last 6 weeks for the Browns to decide we're not spending a first-round pick on a quarterback next year, and we're not trading for Kyler Murray or bringing in, this year's version of Daniel Jones, whatever it is. And so while I find Shedeur's biggest detractors to be typically bad people, and I find Shedeur's biggest supporters to be typically very annoying people, I am rooting for him, but I think, we'll see how this next month goes, but I think that he would serve himself well if at least internally and psychologically he reset his own personal expectations to where, man, next year I'm going to go into camp as the clear-cut number 2 somewhere. And then maybe by year 3, I will be able to compete for a starting job somewhere. That to me is a far more realistic and achievable path than imagine when I'm getting all the reps as the starter. Buddy, I don't know that that's happening ever. And then, of course, the story of the game was the 10 sacks from the Browns. I said that I thought Myles Garrett might break the sack record against the Raiders. In their effort to make sure he didn't, everyone else, got Geno. He had 3. He's going to break the record. And the fact that he's only minus 850 for Defensive Player of the Year surprises me. I actually think there is value in that because I think he could get hurt next week and still win it. All right, the other news of the weekend was Ja Morant calling Klay Thompson a bum, and they're back and forth. And I have 2 takes here before we get to the other NFL games that we'll do in quick hitter fashion. Take 1 is this. If you think Ja Morant was a better player than Klay Thompson, I don't respect your basketball opinion. It's a basketball IQ test. First of all, the only way you could have that opinion is if you're basically being like, who would win a one-on-one game? And I'm not certain that peak Ja against peak Klay, that peak Ja would win. He probably would because of the athleticism. But Klay's defense, shooting, and size would have him right there. But who gives a shit who would win a one-on-one game? Klay Thompson was the more complete player, obviously the more mature player, understood how to play winning basketball, was the better teammate, all of the above. So that's just about the children and fools on the internet that are like, well, Ja has a point. You guys don't know what you're watching. The second point is this. We are approaching DEFCON 1 for Ja's career in a way I cannot remember a player his caliber, because he was a great player. Great player. That the only guys who have his caliber who have blown it up like this, like he appears to be trying to do, it was because of drugs or injury. Like, this is a clumsy comp, but I'll stand by it. he is barreling towards a poor man's version of the Derrick Rose trajectory, except it'd be instead of blowing out your knee, you're just an asshole. Like Derrick Rose, who won an MVP, by the way, who made a conference finals, who was on a 60-win team, his career got derailed because he blew his knee out. And before he blew his knee out, ran into LeBron at his apex. Ja's just being a fool. And it's a damn shame. And I don't know that I have much of a comp for it across sports. It's usually drugs or injury. This is neither. This is rank immaturity. All right, let me quickly get to these other games, and then we'll do our pick show tomorrow. Rams beat the Bucks. Baker's injured. My beloved Bucks are in trouble, and Stafford has won MVP. I mean, it's too early to say he's won MVP. It would be shocking if he doesn't win MVP. I don't know what those odds are, but right now, I would, if you could do it, I'm not sure if our friends at Hard Rock Bet allow this, but if you could parlay Stafford MVP plus Myles Garrett Defensive Player of the Year and get, plus anything on it, I'd like that a lot. Patriots beat the Bengals in one of the Patriots' least impressive games of the year and only scoring 19 on that Bengals defense. Not great. You might be like, well, they won 26-20. There was a May pick six, and then later there was a Flacco pick six. The Bengals, man, I'd be so... Jamar Chase had a very nice apology letter that seems sincere, but I'd be so mad at Jamar Chase if I were a Bengals fan, because I think they can win that game if he's there. And then you're 4-7, about to play the Ravens, and potentially just be a game out of the playoffs. Packers beat the Vikings 23-6. J.J. McCarthy legitimately might be the single worst player in the entire NFL. Packers defense is unbelievable. Packers offense still a little shaky. And Lions beat the Giants in a bad win. Great job by Jahmyr Gibbs. Jameis probably should have been the Giants starter week 1, not Russell Wilson. And Jameis should be a starter somewhere next year. But the Vikings, they might... the last time a super high first-round pick only got 1 year was Josh Rosen. And his team replaced him with Kyler Murray. That's the last time this happened. It might happen again, getting only 1 year because he didn't play last year, because he might get replaced by Kyler Murray again. Because Kyler could go to the Vikings. The other quick hitters. Monday Night Football, we talked about a bit. The Panthers, good job, good effort on the season. You were competitive, but you're done. And the Niners are frisky. As long as Christian McCaffrey's healthy and Kyle Shanahan's calling plays and Bob Saleh's calling the defense, they're frisky. Purdy is concerning. We didn't talk about Texans-Bills. And listen, we all know the rules, guys. When Josh Allen's great, he's the most talented quarterback ever. And when he's bad, it's Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott's fault. He was bad against the Texans. That Texans defense is also ferocious. And that's a scary team down the stretch with the defense playing that way. Seahawks beat the Titans 30-24 in a game that was not nearly that close. Cam Ward actually played well. I thought that was one of the better Cam Ward games of the year. Seahawks had full control. Jackson Smith and Jigba maybe stealing the Offensive Player of the Year from Jonathan Taylor? Possibly. Ravens beat the Jets 23-10 in a game the Jets were in, a ridiculous fourth down call by Aaron Glenn when the Ravens offense had done nothing, combined with a Breece Hall fumble, made it to where the Jets, squandered what could have been a close fourth quarter. Something's wrong with the Ravens offense, and Lamar hasn't been Lamar. Bears beat the Steelers. I knew Aaron Rodgers, it was idiotic for him to play. He didn't play. Steelers scored 28, 21 on offense, 7 because of a terrible Caleb fumble, and the Bears get to 8-3. Jags beat the Cardinals 27-24 in a game that I don't want to talk about for 2 reasons. One is Trevor was terrible, but more importantly, I don't want to get into the full details of this. But had the Cardinals won that game, I would have won $34,000. And watching how that game ended was difficult to deal with. God, that's a little bit. I didn't lose. I lost less than $1,000. But I did a very foolish multi-leg money line parlay that when that game went to overtime, every other leg was already in. And you guys know I'm on team never ever cash out under any circumstances. So we let that sucker ride, and that was a painful one. Falcons beat the Saints 24-10 in a game I didn't watch 1 second of. So that covers Week 12 in the NFL. We will do our pick show that will air tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Like, rate, subscribe, review. Make sure you get our pick show in your feed. A huge shout out to Volume and to Blue Duck. And of course, to our great sponsors, Hard Rock Bet, Boost, Wayfair, and Zen. See you guys tomorrow for our Week 13 pick show.